In this video, I'm going to talk to you about why meditation can make smart man worse, not better. This is the biggest danger in having a meditation practice that people don't really talk about. So let's get into today's presentation. And I did this in a different layout, so if you prefer this over the presentations that I do, please let me know. Okay, before I start this, I want to give you context so you understand where I'm coming from and why I'm speaking on this subject. First of all, I am a pretty consistent meditator myself for especially from 2021 to around 2024. There is a period where I was meditating daily for around 60 minutes, sometimes 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours per day, right? And the main practice I was following was the practice I learned from our Buddhist teacher, Sister Kema, who is also mentoring my mentor, Pierre, who taught me this meditation, and it's called TWIM. TWIM is based on loving kindness. So it's about bringing out warm feelings towards a baby animal, a happy memory, or a human baby, sharing that feeling with yourself, and then carrying that feeling over to your spiritual friends. So it's not just working with the mind, it's also working with the heart. And this is a danger that I've fallen into deeper in my TWIM practice, and I was only able to progress from where I was. There was a period where I was stuck when I learned, oh, this is actually a trap that I'm in. So I'm not against meditation as a whole. I'm just making this video so if you're someone who's dedicated the meditation to journaling, to regulation practices, but you feel like the emptiness that you feel inside hasn't really changed, this might be the reason why. Okay, so like I said, doing meditation is not the problem. However, chasing peak states, chasing states of love, equanimity, focus, calm, to avoid your belief system, to avoid the beliefs in your mind that take you away from the person you want to be, turns meditation into an avoidance mechanism. And the thing is, meditation is something that's glorified as a habit, right? When you tell people, oh, I meditate for 50 minutes a day, no one looks at you and says, oh my God, why are you doing that? That's so unhealthy. Instead, what we do is we say, that's amazing. However, so many people, especially in the way that a lot of the common apps like Calm, Headspace are a little bit gamified and they give you this light version of meditation to create a state rather than give you the space to build a genuinely loving relationship with your mind. It can be a great entry point to having a mindfulness practice, but it's not the full solution. So if you use meditation to avoid yourself, then that's a big problem. And here's the reason why. Sometimes doing this can cause spiritual bypassing. This is a term from John Welwood. It's basically when you use a spiritual practice. This could be Wim Hof breathing, although I'm not sure that's called spiritual, right? I would say a state practice as a way to bypass a certain experience. So if you use meditation, like TWIM, to sidestep unresolved pain instead of moving through it, if you use breath work, if you use saunas, if you use cold showers, so it's okay when we use these tools in a holistic way while also looking at our belief system. But if we just chase a state and chase the activities that create the state because we don't want to be with our own belief system in silence, then this is a version of spiritual bypassing. And again, like I said with meditation, since this is something you can get really good at, it's a sophisticated place to hide in if there are emotions or state you don't want to be in. And I remember I had a client I worked with, this was around 2025, who joined our data-driven actualization mastermind. And he said, I've been doing meditation for a few years. He was doing concentration meditations, which is more about focusing in a place, very different than TWIM. And he said, it's been a year and 4 months, and I just feel this void in my heart. The reason for this for him is he would basically create these states in isolation of focus when he was sitting, but he didn't have a clear pathway to bring those states into day-to-day life. So when he was in meditation, he could be extremely calm, But the moment he stopped and started living his day, and maybe he saw someone he was interested in talking to at a coffee shop and he thought about that conversation, the calm left his body, and his old belief system of you're not interesting, no one's going to pay attention to you, she's out of your league, these beliefs just came back. Because what meditation did is it allowed him to access a state, but he didn't have the tools to rewire the beliefs so that state could actually stabilize as a part of who he is. So if you're just getting into a state through meditation, but you're not looking at the belief system that you have that may be preventing you from consistently accessing those states, you create this habit of accessing calm without mapping the triggers that take you away from calm. So you bring up the feeling intentionally as this upwards battle that you're like, okay, I'm going to bring up this feeling, bring up this feeling, bring up this feeling, without letting go of the beliefs so that that feeling comes up naturally. So I made this mistake myself, right? Before I discovered, or before I dove as deep into shadow work, I was doing lots of TWIM. And when you do a lot of TWIM, there's a very clear pathway you follow. And eventually you might get to a place, if you're a dedicated meditator, that you can bring up metta, loving kindness, on demand. Or you can bring up equanimity, basically on demand, because you practice these states so much. So I remember I was in this relationship at the time, and I was pretty frustrated about something that my partner did. But instead of facing her with my frustration and saying, hey, this is not okay, I need to set a boundary here, instead, I would just go into a state of boom, metta. And when I was in this state of metta, this loving kindness, because I felt so warm towards her, I didn't have to set the boundary anymore. But that's what I really needed to do, right? So getting into this state that's actually really incredible became an avoidance mechanism so that I didn't have to set a boundary with my partner. I sometimes did the same thing before understanding this a few years ago with equanimity. Like, there could be a goal that I was really seeking, and maybe I didn't meet it, and that was because, okay, I could have actually tried harder for this goal, but instead of owning that, like, okay, I'm going to need to up my efforts here, I just go into equanimity and say life is pretty good, right? So the whole point of this video, if you're a smart man, the key is first you regulate. So what meditation allows you to do a lot of the times is regulating your nervous system. But without debugging your belief system, you're still going to have the same beliefs that put you back into the states of anxiety, self-doubt, lack of confidence, or whatever it is. So in data-driven actualization, this is why we have the RDT loop. Regulate your nervous system, debug your beliefs, and track and gamify your life, because every aspect hits like a different area, and when these three aspects connect, this is where you have a loop that helps you consistently transform your life. So if you just regulate, if you just meditate, even with TWIM, which is the most powerful practice I found for most people, you get really good at creating states, getting into those states, but your belief system stays exactly the same. But when you combine it with debugging your belief system, mapping your triggers, which I have a video around on this channel that you can check out, then you first build access to states you want to get into. Then you also say, this belief that I'm not interesting creates so much of the anxiety I'm trying to avoid by doing my meditation. Let me give that belief back to wherever it came from, because I wasn't born with this belief, right? So this is where now you get much better ROI on the time that you meditate, and you don't fall back into states outside of meditation that you don't really enjoy. So here is how you can almost like test whether your meditation is helping you heal or it's helping you hide. When it comes to hiding, it's all about soothing the symptom, right? So if you meditate to tap into focus, if you meditate to feel calmer, if you meditate to avoid a trigger in life, or if you bring up a state to avoid a trigger, like I did with not setting the boundary, and nothing underneath changes, you just go back to those states in your day-to-day life, you're using state practice to hide. But if you're facing triggers in your life, you're staying with the difficult things. You trace your beliefs back to the root, back to where it came from. You give the beliefs that don't serve you, that you picked up from the outside world back, and your behavior actually shifts, then you are in the process of healing or rewiring your belief system. So, the most important thing I want to bring across in this video is the goal with meditation was never to chase joy, was never to chase calm. In fact, in TWIM, we have a saying that says, whenever you chase a state, it kind of runs away from you, right? The goal is to become someone who doesn't need to hide from himself. And meditation is the regulation piece of that, but it's not the full solution. So next time you're meditating or you're trying to do any practice like Wim Hof breathing, box breathing, cold shower, running even, to bring up a state, ask yourself, am I trying to bring up this state because I'm running away from something? Or is this a healthy, systematic integration of the person that I want to be? So the key is focus on regulation first as the masterpiece. Then, once you are more regulated, you can go into your belief system. If you want my 7-day process completely free to do this, after you watch this video, just comment down below DDH or click the link in description and I'll send it to you. And this will give you our process called the RDT Loop that you can use every single day for the next 7 days in under 20 minutes. So you can turn your mind into your biggest asset, regulate your nervous system, own your state, debug the beliefs that are taking your power away, and become a completely different person. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to give me some feedback, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.